these last time, but it's the way these things go sometimes. Business cards. I've got a whole bunch of them that I've collected over the years. This is a business card that you can assemble into the shape of a race car. All right. Here's a business card. This guy is security consulting, and business card turns into a bunch of lockpicks. I thought you'd get a kick out of that. So, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to do some more stuff with you on Illustrator and show you the ins and outs of using Illustrator. And perhaps, if I have time, introduce you to some of the other things that we'll be covering before we get back to the next assignment here. Okay. How many of you tried to use Illustrator for the logo assignment? Oh, everybody gave it a shot. Okay. Frustrating, easy, hard? Easy? Okay. I'll show you some of the cool stuff. There's some things that you wouldn't find if you didn't know that they were there. Okay. So the CC version of Illustrator is not all that different from previous versions. In fact, Adobe has been criticized for not doing a better job of updating both InDesign and Illustrator. Photoshop, they've maintained very consistently upgrading it, but Illustrator not so much. So I'm going to take you through an example. I'll take you through a little bit of the toolbar stuff, and then I'm going to give you an opportunity to play with it here. Okay? And I'll show you some of the cool things. So I started out, this is my example, I started out by selecting the rounded rectangle over here, and then just dragging from one corner to the next to create a shape. Very simple. Now this is a path. This is not actually a drawing yet. And by path, Adobe means it's an indication of where you could put a stroke if you wanted to, but you don't have to. It's simply the outline of a shape. All right? And I filled it, and there are lots of different ways to fill it. You can click on this. This is the fill. This is the stroke. You can click on those at the very bottom of the screen. Or at the top, once you've selected it, once you've got a path, it'll tell you, we're looking at a path. Here's the fill, and here's the stroke, and this is the thickness of the stroke. There is no stroke yet, but it'll give you a selection of possible fills, and you can choose from the selection there, or if you click on the option button, there are dozens of swatch libraries that you can download for fills. So there's a lot that you can do with that. All right? And this is what happens when you click on the option button. All right? You've got swatch options, spot colors, open swatch library. It's got all of these different collections of colors, and you can select the color. You like the colors of different kinds of ice cream, you can select those colors, and it'll give you a collection of swatches that relate to that particular topic. All right? This is the stroke menu, and what I did was I just took one of the defaults up here. This is a pattern, and it created kind of a funky looking pattern, and it's just the same as you saw in Photoshop and InDesign when you're creating a text box of any kind. You get to choose the weight that you want, and then you can decide whether you want the corners to be sharp corners or rounded corners. Since this is rounded corners, there was no point in fooling with that, but you can if you want to. And then the decision as to whether to have the path inside the stroke inside or outside. This would be outside the path, this would be inside the path, and the other option is to have the path go right through the stroke. You can also select one of their famous dashed lines that you've seen, the same ones that you have in Photoshop and InDesign. So I selected this and I get kind of an interesting pattern there around my shape, and it's a gradient fill. All right. Now, this is something that I didn't teach you about, but I will show you. You'll get a chance to play with this in about 10 minutes or so. Okay? And this is one of the most fun things that you ever had in all college. You never had this much fun. It looks like a little spray can. And just like everything else in InDesign and Photoshop, if it's got that little triangle in the corner, that means that there are hidden tools. And the hidden tools include not only the sprayer, but a whole bunch of resizers and spinners and screeners and all kinds of cool things that you can play with. Please watch the clock. It'll be morning before you know it. All right? So I took one of these tools, and you can go to the Symbols menu. Just as with Photoshop and just within InDesign, if you go down onto the Window menu, it'll offer you a selection of workspaces. And this is the Essentials workspace. There are other workspaces. I just chose Essentials because I think it's the one that's the default. And it'll come up with these panels over here, and the Symbols panel is sitting right over there. Here's swatches, here's different shapes and sizes of brushes, and here's symbols. And you can load them with different kinds of swatches, and you can get all kinds of cool things. These all go right into that can of spray. So you can spray paint to your heart's content. I restrain myself. But look what you can do when you open up the symbol library. Again, you go under the option button. You've got 3D symbols and charts and fashion and flowers and hair and fur. Yes, hair and fur. Mad science, one of my favorites for engineers. Okay. Nature, primitive, a whole bunch of these things. You can go crazy if you want. Please don't go crazy. All right. I restrain myself. I only hit the spray button once, and I got a leaf. But this is the Nature Collection. All of these symbols are available to you, and you can load up. Just click on it and take this spray can and go. Psst. And if you hold the button down, if you hold the mouse key down, it'll just keep spraying, and you'll wind up with hundreds of cockroaches and spiders and things, if that's what you really want. All right? Yeah, you see how you could easily get carried away. All right. Other tools, just to demonstrate to you, there's a tool over here that allows you to warp the shape. This one is called Pucker. And I just took it and I grabbed it, and you can pull in a corner to create a more interesting shape. You know, anything's possible here. All of the effects that you had under filters in Photoshop, not all of them, I shouldn't say all, most of the filters that are available to you in Photoshop are also available in Illustrator. How about that? So you could create a shape, you can go under Effect, you can come down here, and here's a whole bunch of Photoshop effects. So all these other things that we were playing around with when we did Photoshop you can use. I picked one for this demonstration. This is the mosaic tile effect. So I drew this in Illustrator and then applied a Photoshop effect to it. That's the nice thing about the Adobe tools, is that you can do all of this stuff. You can combine all of these different things. All right? So I'm going to very quickly take you through the new document. In fact, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to have you open up Illustrator right now. Okay, when you get the screen up, one of the things that you'll notice is right across the top, look at the toolbar, and there should be a button up there that says Preferences. Is there one up there? Does it show up automatically or no? It's under Edit. It's under Edit, okay. Go under Edit, make the screen a little bit lighter, it'll make it easier for you to see. It's going to be under User Interface. There you go. Now it's easier to see, right? So everybody can get this? Lighten it up, make it easier for you to see the screen. The black is, I think, very difficult for people. Okay, so when you're ready, go under the File, New, Document menu, and click that. And what you'll see is something like, it should look something like this. Okay? So I'll tell you a little bit about the different parts of this thing, and you can decide how you want to do it. It's possible, because we're not actually working with documents, we're just working with images. You can have several of these things open at one time and work on them at the same time. So it's theoretically possible for you to do letterhead, business card, envelope, have them all open at the same time and work on them together in Illustrator. All right? So you can have more than one artboard open at a single time. You can give it a name. The different sizes, they're pretty standard sizes. If you pull that down, you'll see letter, legal. You'll see a variety of other things that they use in terms of naming these things. All right, different sizes. You can change the units from inches to picas, centimeters, furlongs, parsecs, whatever you like. All right? And then the orientation can be vertical or horizontal, entirely up to you. There's room for bleeds. We talked a little bit about this in terms of InDesign documents. You can do the same thing with an Illustrator document, but I would not set a bleed on an Illustrator document. Usually you're going to take the design and paste it into something else, and you don't want the bleeds there if you're going to be doing that. All right? If it's going to be printed on ink, of course, CMYK, go at least 300 pixels per inch. Now, if you click on this button down here, Templates, click on the button down there that says Templates, it will open up a whole bunch of different options for you. Okay? Things that Illustrator's already set up to do. So, there's actually business cards in there. Okay? And there's stationery in there. And there's a t-shirt in there. You could design a t-shirt in Illustrator. If you click on that, it'll give you the shape of a shirt, and then you can decide how you want to design it. All right? So why don't you open up a document, make it letter size. I think that'll work best. Okay, you should have a nice piece of paper sitting in front of you there. All right, so why don't you let's start working our way down the toolbar over here. And instead of starting with the selection tools, what I've got on the screen here, let's start with the shapes. Okay? So over here, this is the Shapes button. If you click on the little black triangle, you'll see that you have rectangle, rounded rectangle, ellipse, polygon, and star. And then I think the flare tool is under there as well. So pick a shape, open it up, put it on the screen. See what you can do. If you click once, you'll get a shape. If you click twice, you'll get a shape. If you hold down the Shift key, it will maintain proportions. It will increase proportionately. All right? You see how that works? Are you getting this? Okay. You can grab a corner. You can rotate it. Illustrator, you don't have to do anything special. In Photoshop, you have to, and InDesign, you have to do that rotation thing. Here you can just grab a corner and turn it around, spin it around that way. Now, instead of clicking on the page, what happens if you click on the pasteboard behind the page? You have a shape selected. Select the shape from the shape menu, and then click on the paste board. You should get a little menu that asks you how big you want this particular shape to be. Did you get one? All right. So you can actually customize the shape if you have a particular size or shape in mind. If you want it to be a square that's exactly 1 inch or a star that's no more than 1 inch, you can set it by using that. Okay? So did everybody get at least one shape on the page? Good. Some of you already started with the stroke and the fill. That's cool. But just give me a chance here. At the top of the screen, right across the top of the screen, you should see a toolbar that has the fill and the stroke on it. All right? There's a white box, that's the fill, and then right next to it you should see a black square. That's the stroke. If you pull down the fill button, you can fill it with any of those different designs, or if you really want to have fun, go ahead and click on the options button and take a look at what the swatch options are under there. Open Swatch Library is the one you're looking for. It's called Open Swatch Library. And then pick a library and it'll give you a whole bunch of other colors. Okay? Oh, you use the flare tool, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. That'll give you eyeballs. You can do 3D with this. You can do extrude. You can do rotate. This is the artistic version of the CAD modeling software that we spend so much time learning. Okay? So were you able to change the insides? You able to get some of the... Okay. All right. Take a shot with the... let's see, where's this? Look under the pencil tool. Underneath the pencil tool, which is right below the shapes. Can you all see where that is? You should find, first, a pencil tool that you can use for drawing. All right? You can also, there's the smooth tool. I think I showed you how to use the smooth tool. But one of the cool things is that there's a path eraser in there. If you turn the pencil around so that the eraser is pointing down, it will erase any of the points in a shape. And you know that all of these shapes are created, but it's vector drawing, so it's all arithmetic and all the shapes. So if you have a star and you use the eraser to get rid of one of the shapes, you're going to wind up with a real funky looking star. You have to get selected. And now I should be able to use the eraser. Uh-oh. Erase the whole thing? I wonder why. It's not supposed to do that. It's just supposed to erase the points. What am I doing wrong? Okay. Now there's another one further down here. This is called Perspective Grid. And if you click on this one, you will see the screen will suddenly turn into a perspective view for you. So there are a whole bunch of different things you can use there. Lots of different tools. Okay, so go down now to the line tool, right? Underneath the pen, remember how the pen tool is used, right? Okay, so right underneath that is a line tool, and there are 5 different options there. Go nuts. Go ahead and draw things with the pen tool. Different kinds of lines, different kinds of shapes. Boy, some of you folks are really artistic. Either that or you're very lucky. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, all kinds of lines. Now, if you want to control the lines, how they look, I believe you have to go to on the right-hand side, there should be a panel called Brushes. Look for the symbol that looks like a brush. Okay, you'll need to pull it down. You need to see more of that. Pull it way down. You got a whole bunch of different thicknesses of brushes, different kinds of brushes. If you click on any of the default ones, you can draw with that. All right? But guess what's hiding under the option button? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. A whole library. take a look at the different kinds of brushes. It's this one right here. Yeah, that's the one. And then pull this down. You can pull it down so you can see what's available to you. So these are some of the defaults, but under here, under the option button, there's a whole library of different kinds of brushes. Open brush library. Yeah, there you go. See why your days are funny now? Yeah, it's too cool for words. Nobody else. Try the different kinds of brushes, try the different things that are available to you in there. There's just so much stuff, it's absolutely amazing. Okay, let me know when you're ready to move on to something even more exciting. It's better. You're not going to believe this. It actually gets better. Hold on the option button. Yeah, the library, open brush library. And then try one of the more. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, those are brushes. Those are cool, right? You always wanted a whole bunch of stars. Yeah, that's boring. That's exciting. Yeah, pull it down. There's more. There's loads of them in there. If you ever can't find a particular brush or a symbol or anything, you can go online and just type in Adobe Illustrator brushes. And you can download sets. People make these things up and they just put them online and you can download hundreds of these things. Isn't that something? Okay, you're all going to flunk out of school this semester, I know. I'll give you another minute to play with this and then I'm going to show you something even cooler. Are you ready? You ready for more? No, you're totally wrapped up now. This is where your ADHD really kicks in. I could tell. All right, look up for a second, folks. On this side over here, there's a really strange looking button. That's the width tool. And under there, that's where you're going to find warp, twirl, pucker, bloat, scallop, crystallize, and wrinkle. Go for it. Pick your favorite shape and bloat. See, this is why we should have a color printer in this room, don't you think? You want to print these out and take them home with you for Thanksgiving to show your folks that you really are learning something important in school. You're making me very glad that I didn't teach you this before the assignment because you would have never finished the logo assignment. Sarah, you going to be okay? Yeah. Yeah? All right. There are more tools under there. There's the shape builder. Okay. You can just take a whole bunch of shapes. Just create a bunch of shapes, use the shape builder tool, and it will combine them into a single shape. All right, let's see what else I've got in here. All right, you ready to play with the spray can? Are you? Okay. So go over on the right where it says Symbols and open up the Symbols panel. And pull it over right into the middle of the screen so you can really see it. Okay? And there are some defaults in there. Take the spray can and select one of the defaults and just give a little spritz and see what happens. Something wrong? Doesn't want to do it? What does it say? Okay. So let's select that one. Wonder why it's not doing it. Oh, because you have to use the spray tool first. There, and that's what you're picking. Here's over here on the right-hand side, you should have. So you get the spray can, and you can select the sponge. Alright? Then hold down the spray can and see what happens. Hang on to your seats. There's all kinds of cool things will happen. And then go under the options button and look at the other options that you have for spray can. There are several different spray cans there. To be honest with you, I don't remember from time to time which is which. There's a sizer one that resizes it so that you'll have all different size things. In the example they show you up here, they've got all the different size goldfish. Now, if you're not happy with the size of the spray, spray once on the screen to create a single image, then select that with the black arrow tool and enlarge it or shrink it as you see fit. Get it to be just the right size. Then when you go back and select the spray can again, all of them should be the same size as the one you just selected. You went under Mad Scientist, didn't you? Yes. Yes. All right. Okay. When you've played enough, look up, and I'll just teach you a couple more things, and then we'll move on to something else. Okay? You having fun? Isn't this a blast? It really is. And I'm sort of glad I didn't spend more time on it last week because I would have gotten a dozen people saying, "Can we hand in the assignment late?" Because I was up all weekend making designs. All right. What else? There was okay. Right next to the spray can is a graphing tool Go ahead and open up the graphing tool. And you might want to start with a new document since your screen is all mucked up there. You could select everything and then click delete if you want to. That might give you a little more room. But try out some of these graphing tools. Tell me what you think of them. I mean, we've talked a little bit about using graphing tools in Word. With Word, you always have to go through the Excel spreadsheet, right? Try the graphing tools, see if you can figure out how to use them. You already figured it out. Okay. Yeah, you got it. It's not that hard, right? It's pretty intuitive. What's missing, I think, in Illustrator is a real opportunity to do a Gantt chart or timeline. I don't think the tools do a good job with that. Is it working for you? Is it creating nice looking charts? Yes? Okay. And you can change, I mean, I think the defaults are black and white, but you can change the color if you want. I don't think it's hard to do that at all. Pardon?
So you do math like Excel does?
No, it's not a real spreadsheet. No, it's not a real spreadsheet. It's a table. It's a table. It won't do, I don't think it takes formulas. If you need to have the spreadsheet do the math for you, then you need to use something like Excel. But if you've just got a bunch of numbers you want to plug in and create a graphic out of those numbers, this is probably as good as anything else that you're going to find. Okay? Take a minute or two with that, and then we'll go on to the last thing I want to mention here. Okay, if you would be so kind as to clear the screen and select the shape of the ellipse, hold down the shift key and make it a circle, because I think it works better with a circle. You can, I guess you could freehand an ellipse, but a circle would be fine. And then at the top, you will see there's a menu called, it's the menu called Effect, and it'll say 3D. And pick any one of those and see what happens. You'll have to fill the shape, of course. It's going to need some kind of fill. But then go ahead and make, otherwise you'll be able to see the 3D effect. It should tell you to wait while it's thinking. Yeah, there you go. That's a black hole. That's an actual black hole. It's a toroid. Look at that. Isn't that cool? You can change the lighting. There's a way to change the lighting. I forget how you do it. I don't remember how to do it. But there is a way to do it. Maybe it's under effects. Way to change the lighting. Sorry, I don't remember. There's just, obviously there's only so much one person can store in his or her brain. Okay, is it going to turn you into a 3D? Yeah, maybe. Okay, we'll see. Isn't that cool? Yeah. So you can rotate these things, you can move them around, you can change the lighting on them, which I don't remember how to do. Katie, do you remember how to change the lighting? No? Okay. So how'd you get that beautiful donut? Just a circle with extrude? Okay. There you go. You got it now. You can do all kinds of things that's, I think, as far as I'm going to go with this. Questions? Other thoughts? It's there for you. Did I give you the instruction sheet on how to import an Illustrator into InDesign? I thought that I gave that to you. Did I not? Oh dear. Okay. I can send that to you electronically if you want it. A couple of other things I want to teach you today. All right. Okay. Did I talk to you folks about hold on a second. What did I want to do? I gotta find the machine. Captions. Okay. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about captions. Okay, the next assignment that you're going to be doing here is going to be a staff directory with photographs, and then the last assignment is you're going to be illustrating a process and designing a process. So I'm going to talk a little bit about captions here and how you put them all together. Okay, so if you folks would be so kind as to turn around and look at me, I will teach you a little bit more about using captions. So one of the really big differences between the kinds of writing that we teach in EPD and the kind of stuff that you get in other courses, COMB courses, is that engineering writing is often filled with illustrations. It really is. If you were to write a paper for the English department about Moby Dick, they would not expect you to put in a picture of a whale. Whereas if you did the same thing for engineering, they would want to know the size, dimensions of the whaling ship, the materials that it was constructed from, your formula for buoyancy, navigation tools. That's what people would expect. It's quite different here. Your engineering professors expect you to illustrate documents. If you've collected data, you're expected to put in tables. If you've got photographs, if you've got images, if you've got CAD drawings, you're supposed to show people what it looks like. It's just part of the deal. So teaching you how to create captions that are worthwhile and how to drop them in Word and InDesign, I think that's part of my job. So I'll talk to you a little bit about it. Okay, so there are a couple of things that students do that don't work terribly well in terms of captioning. The first is that they don't understand that when you have an image on a page, it's better if the text actually wraps around it rather than just having it interrupted. So I get student papers very often where they've got text, and then they've got an illustration, and then they've got text, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it except that it's not the most professional looking design. If you want a more professional looking design, then you should really be going with something that has the text wrapping around the image. Okay? Student writing often uses line length that's too long. And we talked a little bit about line length. You did a whole assignment on typography, and you got to see what happens when you're working with a limited line length. In some cases, it will look much better. In some cases, it will look worse. It depends upon the type that you've selected, how large the type is, the X height, whether you're justifying it or not. But in most cases, if you get an assignment for a professor and they spec out what they want, they will tell you they want 1-inch margins on all 4 sides. And what they're saying is if you take an 8.5 piece of paper, you take an inch off the left, an inch off the right, and you wind up with a 6.5-inch line length. All right? that doesn't make a lot of sense. 6.5-inch line length is way too big. But that's the standard. That's what people expect. Please, regardless of whatever I tell you, whatever you know looks good, if they spec it out that way, you give them what they want. Okay? Other things that happen. Captions that don't stay with the graphics. So the graphic is on one page and the caption pops up to the next page. It wraps to the next, because that's what Word will do to you. And students don't see that the caption really has to stick with the picture. This is still a problem with ebooks. In some cases, the formatting for ebooks is such that the user can determine the way the image looks in an ebook. How many people here have played with a Nook or a Kindle or one of the other versions of an ebook? Okay, and it's just pretty much straight scrolling, right? You can so there's no real page design, which means that you can have an illustration somewhere when you scroll, and who knows where the caption's going to be. It could be any place. As far as I know, there really is still no way to make a caption stick to an illustration with the ebook format. But on paper, you should be able to do that. All right? And then the captions don't really fit the graphics. And they don't fit them in two senses. One, they don't fit where they should fit next to or under the image. And secondly, they don't really do anything to explain what the image is. The whole purpose of having a caption is to explain what the image is. And we talked a little bit about earlier in the semester, how do people really read? All right? You go to get a haircut and they say it'll be 10 minutes, and you sit down and you're reading a magazine or something. How do you really read? Do you start at the beginning and read all the way through to the end? No, you don't. You go through it, and the first thing you look for are interesting pictures. And if the picture is interesting and intriguing, what are you going to do next? You're going to read the caption under the picture. If the caption tells you enough to intrigue you and get you to read the story, then you're going to read the head, and then the subhead, and then finally you'll read the body text. And that's how people really read. Okay. So this is the kind of thing that I usually get. All right? It's a single column, it's double spaced, it's got 1-inch margins. And there's a graphic, there's no attempt at wrapping. Very often it's margin to margin. And the caption is just as long as everything else. All right? Now, there's a reason why your professors told you to do this. They didn't just make it up. Actually, there's several reasons. The first reason is that this is actually APA style. This is the official style that you're supposed to use if you're writing APA. The second is that they want a lot of space in here because they're going to write comments and make notes to you they need room for that. So those are the two things that they're trying to solve. But what you wind up with is a very ugly looking document, and certainly it's not something that's inviting. When I get a pile of these from students, I grit my teeth. And then I sit down and start reading, because that's what I'm supposed to do. All right? Sometimes students know a little bit more. They try to make things work a little bit better. All right, so here the graphic is, doesn't fill the whole size of the page, and you've got a whole bunch of white space over here. But unlike the good white space, that's the bad white space. It doesn't do anything except show you that the student doesn't know how to wrap. All right? And here's another example, same kind of thing you see in a student paper. You got text, and what happened with Word was Word came to the image, right? And Word decided that it couldn't fit the image over here, so what did Word do? It helped you. It bumped the image to the next page, leaving you with the frozen tundra, right? There you go. So all of these things don't look very good. They're not integrated into the text. There are so many other things that you can do that make things much better. Here's an example of a well-integrated design. All right? Large image. The caption fits right under the image. How can you tell it's a caption? It's a different typeface. It's really clear what it is. Here's another image. Text wraps around it. There's your caption right there. And the captions stay with the photos, and they fit the photo width. Doesn't that look nice? All right. So if you had a 2-column layout, you can do the same thing. What you'll have to do, though, is you're going to have to resize the photo to fit the column width. So if you've chosen the column width, let's say you've picked 15 picas, you're going to have to resize a photo to fit a 15 pica wide space. Is that hard to do? No, it's not hard to do at all. Not at all. All right. Here I've got a larger image. I've got a horizontal image. It's not going to really be visible if I have to shrink it down to column width. So look what I did. I broke the rules. Ooh. Yeah, I broke the rules. The it actually intrudes into the column. How about that? Isn't that something? You could do that. You have my permission to do that. Okay? But that's what you have to do when you have a horizontal image and you want people to be able to see the detail. All right? Here's an example of a map. Actually it's a Google Earth image. All right? And it's very horizontal. And if I shrank it, you wouldn't be able to see anything. All the details would be lost. So I have to have the caption here. Here's the image. And look what I was able to do. As long as this is the image and this is the caption, here's my head. And here's where my text begins, over there. That's called a straddle head. A straddle head. All right. So the lesson here is that you remember proximity and the importance of proximity. The caption has to stay close to the image. You have to find a way to do that. All right. So, what are your options for making captions? Well, the captions, excuse me. The simplest is to do them as you go along. As you insert a picture, you make the caption, that's fine. You make a text box, you type in the caption, you format the text. Should you use the same text that you use in body text for the caption? This is a debate. Some people say yes, you should. Other people say no. My own preference is to make the captions look different. So sometimes I will make the captions smaller. Sometimes I'll make them smaller and bold. Sometimes if the body text is a Roman serif type font, I will use a sans serif for captions. But there are also some people who say that's a no-no, you shouldn't do that. The other option is to make the caption the same as the body text except italic. You could try it, see how it looks. Some people like it, some people really hate it. It's sort of up to you. And then you group the caption with the image. And this is not hard to do in Word. You can do it in InDesign. You just select the two of them together and you click the little group button. And once you group these two things, the program assumes that you want these two things to stay together as a group. And it will keep them together, and then you can put them wherever you want. And then you can set a text wrap to wrap the text around the image and the caption. All right? As far as numbering is concerned, you number each of the images in order. Now, did they teach you how to number images in the 397 class? Did your professors teach you about this? Okay, then as a refresher, there are essentially three different kinds of illustrations that engineers tend to use. There are probably more, and depending upon what style you're using, you may have the option of actually inventing your own. But essentially you'll have tables, figures, and equations. All right, and those are actually the defaults in Word, and you'll have to decide whether this is a table, a figure, or an equation. Now the difference between tables and figures is that tables have precise data, and it's an array, a matrix, a grid of some sort. That's a table. Anything that's not an array, a grid, a matrix is considered a figure. So your CAD drawings are figures, your photographs are figures, your line graphs are figures, your pie charts are figures, your area graphs are figures, okay? Everything else is that's not a table is considered a figure. And equations obviously are equations. Other options that you may have, again, depending upon where it's going to be published, how it's going to be printed, and what the standards are. There are some books that use a lot of maps. Civil engineers tend to have lots and lots of maps. So you may want to have a category of figure called map. Map 1, map 2, map 3. All right? I have seen mechanical engineers who did a variety of different drawings of the same machine from different angles or different parts of a machine, and they called it sketch 1, sketch 2, sketch 3. You know, you'll have to figure out what works best for you. Okay? So you can use the program to create running caps. Both Word and InDesign will do this for you. It will format the text and will number them in order. There's something real funky about Word that I'll tell you about when we get there. But it's entirely up to you, and you can create a style for the captions. So let's say you decide you want to use a sans serif font, you want to use a smaller size, you want to make it bold. You can create a style called caption style and apply that to all of your captions, and then they'll all be the same. All right? Now, the APA says this. APA style caption. I have to teach you this stuff because this is the standard in engineering. Okay? The general format, when you're using a figure that you've taken from a book, the caption goes under the figure. All right? And it'll look something like this. Figure X, and that's the number of the figure. And then a descriptive phrase that serves as the title. And then period reprinted or adapted from, and then the name of the book and the page number, by author's first initial, second initial, surname. Then, comma, year, comma, place of publication, colon, publisher, period, copyright year, by the name of the copyright holder, reprinted or adapted with permission, because you're always supposed to get permission to do this. You're not supposed to do it without getting permission. Now, if you are submitting an academic paper, you're not required to ask for permission, but you are required to indicate the source of the image in the document. If you don't, that's considered plagiarism, which is academic dishonesty, which will get you into a whole heck of a lot of trouble. All right? So, it's going to look something like this. This is a figure from a journal article. Okay, so again, the caption goes under the figure, and it says figure 1, period. It tells you what it is. Schematic drawings of a bird's eye view of the table, A, and the test phase of the choice task, B. Numbers represent the dimensions in centimeters. Look at the size of this description. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines of description. That's not a bad thing. That means that a person could look at the pictures and read the captions and get a lot more information than if you just have it all in the text. Consider making longer and more detailed captions. That's a good thing to do. You really help your reader when you do that. Okay? This is a figure from a website. Okay? Same deal. The caption goes under the figure, and then a descriptive phrase, and then reprinted from da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and then the website that you got it from. Same deal. Okay. You with me? All right. So we'll go into, first we'll do Word. We'll see if we can get Word to cooperate with us. And then we'll go to InDesign. All right, here we go, making captions. All right, you got two options with Word for doing this. You can do it manually, which means that you insert the captions yourself, or you can let Word do it automatically. Okay? I can't promise you that it's always going to work, and there are some real cautions in here that you should look at. And then we'll talk a little bit about setting up the style. All right? I think it's a good idea to start with the style. You should decide what you want it to be like. If you decide that you want it to be a sans serif typeface, that you want it to look like that, that's fine. That's great. Go ahead and do that. That's wonderful. Open up a text box, type in your caption. Apply the style. You know the style menu that's across the top in Word? All right. Then group the image and the caption so that they stay together. This is what the group button looks like in Word and in PowerPoint, by the way. They both look exactly alike. It'll show you two boxes with a border around it, and if you click on that, it'll ask you what you want to do, and you say group. And that will, the computer will assume that you want to keep those two things together. So I start out with this one. This is the image. This is the caption, and you can see that they've both been selected because you can see the marquees around them, right? I select them at the same time, I hit group, and I wind up with something like that. All right? Notice that the key line runs around the image, but it does not run around the caption. The caption is supposed to stay outside the key line. There may be some styles where you decide that you want the caption inside the key line. Yeah, that's a lot trickier. I can do that. You can do it too, but it's going to be a lot trickier, I think. All right? Now, the automatic way of doing it is that it's like creating a number list. You remember how you create a number list? All right, the easy way was to simply click on that number button and cross your fingers and hope that it works. All right, it's very similar here. The only difference is that in addition to creating a number list, you're going to put a prefix in front of it, and you're going to have an opportunity to add text after the number. All right? Now, if you move it around, the caption will stick to it, and the numbering will change automatically. This is a wonderful thing. So if you have an image, and when you started out, it was the third image, figure 3, and then you decided, no, Professor Zwickel's going to want to see this picture earlier in the document, and you move it up to page 1. So now it's the first image. Word, theoretically, should renumber it figure 1. Isn't that nice? Yeah. Here's your problem. Professor Zwickel is also going to tell you you must refer to all figures in the text. No miscellaneous figures. So somewhere in the text of this document, you must say there's an example of two different shapes that you can see in figure 1. Because now we moved it. But look, what is that going to change? It doesn't change when you change that. Uh-oh. So you have to go back and change all the numbering. You see what I'm saying? All right. So this is where you're going to find this thing. All right. It's under the References menu under Insert Captions. All right. That's where it is, right there. You pick the object that you want to have a caption. And you put the cursor where you want the caption located. So you've got your image. All right. You hit Return, and that's where you want the caption to be. And then you go under References, Insert Caption. And then you say the special prayers that we say to the computer gods. And if you're really lucky, you will get the caption screen to pop up. So as I told you before, the defaults in Word, equation, figure, table, you can create a new label. So let's say you have a bunch of photographs and you want to call them Photo 1, Photo 2, Photo 3. Or maybe you've got maps, or maybe you've got sketches, or whatever it is, CAD drawings. You can call them that. You can create a new label. But these are the three that you have in the defaults. All right? So, top one, caption. You type any additional wording that you want. So if you wanted to say figure 1, photograph of Professor Zwickel trying to teach Photoshop. That's what's going to appear. That's what's going to be in there. Then the label, you decide which it's going to be. Depending upon what you pick over here, that's going to change what's in the top box up there as well. All right? And then position, where do you want the caption to be in relation to the object? It's sort of hidden below here, but this is position. Below selected item, because most of the time you want the caption to go below. There are some styles where they put captions above images, but I think most people are accustomed to seeing the caption either right under the image or right next to the image. Just think proximity, okay? If you think proximity, you won't go wrong. All right? Now, making a style for captions, it's the same as making styles for anything else. You pull down the Styles menu, and you click on New Style. There it is right there. And you can create a new style. You give it a name. Usually I call it, I'm very creative, I call it caption. That's just me, though. You could call it something else like pizza, right. Okay, thank you. I get stuck sometimes. And you're formatting a paragraph now. That's what you want to create. You want to create a paragraph style, and you want to add it to the list of styles that you have up there. All right. Some other thoughts about styles of captions. Don't make them too small. If they're too small, people won't be able to see them. The credit line. Now, if you're doing a publication that has a credit line, the credit line can be very small. So you'll see in newspapers and magazines they buy a photograph or an image from Magnum or one of the other big companies that sells photos. By the way, if you ever get a picture of a celebrity doing something really stupid, go online and look up Magnum or one of the other photography companies. They will buy your photo, and then it'll run newspapers all across the country, and you'll be really famous. And you might even get paid. Okay. No, I don't think hyphenation works well in captions. Usually captions are no more than 1, 2, maybe 3 lines of text. They might be 4 would be really pushing it. But if you've got such a small block of text, you don't really want to have hyphenation on. You can try the italics version of the body text. You can try a strong contrast. See if that really works well for you. But as a general rule, the line length should be the image width. And that means that you can't just throw random images into your document. If you decide that all the images are going to be 4 inches wide, then they all need to be 4 inches wide. That's a good thing. Uniformity helps. You get, that repetition, unity, all that good stuff that we talked about. Okay? So here I did a caption, and I put it in italics. It's the same typeface, only it's smaller and it's in italics. That's my granddaughter Mitzi. Chocolate peanut butter ice cream, for those of you who are keeping track. Okay. Now, this one is stronger contrast. I made it a sans serif typeface and bold. And this is what happened when I tried to make it justified. Uh-oh. Ugly, yeah? Yeah. All right. So Word doesn't do the greatest job with that. Let's try InDesign. Let's see what InDesign can do for us. Okay. All right. So, as before, paragraph style, you get to pick what you want, and then whenever you have a caption, you can apply the style. The numbering in InDesign will also be automatic. Some funky things can happen. All right. New paragraph style. You remember that little button, that little icon at the bottom with the folded corner? That's the one that you use. It looks like that. That's the one you use to create a new paragraph style. You can go under here, bullets and numbering, and this is going to be a number list. Okay, and it's a list of figures. All right, and when you click on this thing over here, the kind of list that it is, it will show you, okay, figure, and then there's a space. This caret thing means that there's a number, and then dot, and then a tab. So it's going to add a tab, and that will give you space between the word figure 1 and the actual text that goes after that. All right? You can choose a defined list. You can make a new list, whatever you like to do. Numbering style. You get to number these. You should know that the APA style is always 1, 2, 3, 4. But what the heck? If it's your publication, you can make them A, B, C, D. Roman numerals 1, 2, 3, 4. But if it's APA style, it has to be numerals, Arabic numerals. Right? And then for number, you type in the label and any spacing, punctuation, any of the other stuff that you want. The black triangle next to the number box, this one over here, if you click on that, you don't have to remember these special symbols over here. InDesign will remind you which one is which, and you just click on it and it automatically will insert it for you. Okay? So figure A, you get the word figure, a space, and then the numbering, the meta characters is what they call them. And once you're done, you can apply it wherever you have a caption. All right? So, list items are numbered in the order in which they're added to the page. Okay? So if you add figures 1, 2, 3, 4, and then all of a sudden you decide you want another image, and you're going to drop it on page 1, it's going to be number 5, even though it's on page 1. So you're going to mess up poor old InDesign if you do that. To reorder them, you have to cut and paste them back into the order in which you want them. That's a pain, right? All right. Now, one of the nice things that you can do is use metadata. All right. Metadata is information about the information. And we have this in both Photoshop and in InDesign. In InDesign, this is, let's see. Okay. You go under File, File Info. And this is XMP, which is a markup language. It's like a mark, it's tags. Think of it as tags. All right? It tags the image, and you can put all of this information in there in Photoshop. When you're creating an image in Photoshop that you want to use in the document, you can put in this stuff, and then you can tell InDesign that you want to use the description as the caption. And it'll pull the description right out of the image and use it as the caption for you. Okay? You'll find it under, it's a menu called Automate, and then Scripts, and then Label Graphics. And you can use that. Okay? I think that's all I really have here. What I'd like you folks to do is to come on up for a minute and take a look at some of these business cards here. Come on up. I'll show you some of the business cards. Most of these are from former students of mine. I've collected lots of business cards that different students have made. Okay, this woman is in charge of trademark licensing, which means she gets to decide who gets to use the motion W. So look how she did her business card. You see what you can do when you got what we call clout? Isn't that something? These are all former students of mine. I think just about all of these are former students of mine. And you can see all the different designs that people use. Some of these were just made up for that that assignment that I told you about, the elevator talk. This is a nice one. This is Accenture. Look at that, isn't it beautiful embossed? Right. This one, if you ever go to Egypt, and I don't know that anybody's ever going to go to Egypt again, but I just love this one because it's called the Lina Shop Hassle-Free Shop. Who wouldn't want to go to the hassle-free shop? Isn't that? And in the back they've got all the translation of Egyptian hieroglyphics, because they're going to try to sell you a little cartouche with your name. This is Grandma Mary's Cafe, and I don't mind saying this out loud, even though we're on camera here. Don't go to this place. This is one of the worst restaurants I've ever been to in my entire life. It's just awful. Okay? Why does this one have? What's a little? Is it a little envelope or something? Some of these, as you can see, are a lot more creative than others. Now, if you ever decide that you need business cards, and I think you should carry some with you when you go to the career fair. I think they could lose your resume, but there's a good chance they're going to stick the card in the pocket. So you can go and you can buy these pre-printed sheets. All right? And you can just pop them into a printer, and this one will print 10 business cards. They're pre-curved. And they're not going to look like the professionally printed ones. The professionally printed ones have become, in my opinion, a real racket. They charge an outrageous amount of money for these things. This is the template that you use. All right. So usually what I do is when I set this up, this is Avery 5371. Did I show you where to find these things in Word? Under envelopes and labels? Okay. And this is what the sheets look like. And you just put these into any ordinary printer and you pop them out and you wind up with business cards. So they'll do in a pinch. They're not the greatest in the world. They're not going to look as good as something that you have done professionally, but, you know, for the most part, they'll take care of business for you. So, I've been here long enough, so I've had several of these things. This is when I first started out. That was from 1999. This was my first one, I think. Yeah, this is my first business card here, my second business card here, third business card here. I had this done years ago when I was doing counseling and workshops, and it's the foil stamp process. Isn't that pretty? And it was really, really cheap in those days, and now it's become extremely expensive. Far too expensive for the likes of me. Let me just see if I can find you the most recent card here. I might have one in my jacket pocket. Oh, I know where I keep them. Right here. So the most recent card looks like this. This is the story of my life right there. in business cards. All right. The reason that I added the Bernard is not because I'm vain, although I am vain, but I'm not that vain. It's because with the arrival of the internet, I discovered that there are two other Stephen Zwickels in the world. There's Stephen Charles Zwickel, who is an IT engineer, and he just won a prize, and I keep getting congratulations. Poor Stephen. Okay, and then there's Stephen Nicholas, who is actually a cousin of mine, who I believe now is living in London with his folks. So yeah, even with a bizarre name like Stephen Zwickel, there are more of us running around than you might want to think. Okay? So let's collect the assignments, and then we're done, and we'll see you back here on Thursday.
Apologies for my lateness. I was doing my Wisconsin engineering.
Oh, sure you were.
It was. I have pictures.